Okay, Jeanette was supposed to deliver this evening's sermon, but she did write it, and I'll be very pleased and honored to present it to you. We'll be celebrating Passover a couple weeks from now. It is our oldest holiday, the one in which we commemorate our freedom from bondage in Egypt. Because the Torah tells us specifically how Passover should be celebrated, right down to what we should eat and how we should cook it, it is also the holiday most laden with tradition. Everything we eat, say, and do during our Seders has ancient traditional roots. No matter how progressive we may see ourselves in most things, we want Passover to stay exactly the same. That, to me, is one of the most valuable things about the whole celebration. Judaism is a changing, evolving religion, and that is a good thing. People and cultures change, and a religion cannot stay relevant if it doesn't change with them. There is an old saying that the greatest gifts you can give your children are roots and wings. Our wings are God's covenant with us, His promise that He will always be our God, always be there to love us, always ensure that the Hebrew faith will survive. Our roots are our Torah and our traditions, and Passover is at the very heart of those. Generation after generation, for thousands of years, parents have told their children how Moses and Aaron secured our freedom from Pharaoh and led us out of Egypt. The stories that accompany the roasted egg, the horseradish, the harosis, the unleavened bread, all serve to tell a child that he is a valued part of a long, unbroken heritage. When he is small, Passover may be nothing more to him than a good dinner and a story time rolled into one. But as he ages and watches his children of his own asking the 4 questions that he used to ask, he begins to understand that he is a part of God's holy plan for the survival of His chosen people. We live in a world that is changing so fast. If your cell phone is more than a year old, it's a relic. If you had the same computer for more than 3 years, it too is a relic. If you don't have a computer at all, you're living in the last century. Technology is wonderful, but it falls into the category of wings. Could we keep up with it, and would we want to keep up with it if we didn't also have roots? In a world that moves so fast, we have trouble comprehending the changes. Passover is a way to say, stop, time out. I'm going to quit worrying about where I am and focus for just a little while on where I came from. Passover, like so many of our Jewish holidays, is very much a family celebration. No matter how scattered a Jewish family may be, its members make every effort to be together for the holiday. That is probably because from the time they were very small, children are an integral part of every aspect of Passover. When they become adults, they look back on their family seders as something that helps them define who and what they are. Is there a Jew anywhere, no matter how unobservant he may be, who does not give some thought to his Jewish identity and heritage during Passover? There is one disservice to our ancestors that I think most of us are guilty of during Passover and occasionally during the rest of the year. That is, we tend to dehumanize any large group of people if we didn't know any of them personally or if they are geographically removed from us. Think about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. If we hear of 20 citizens there getting killed by a suicide bomber, we don't react. We don't think about the families that just got torn apart or the grieving parents, spouses, and children. We just shrug our shoulders and move on to other news. But if an American soldier from Latrobe gets killed in Iraq or Afghanistan, it becomes a tragedy for us. If we hadn't been blessed with Bob Mendler in our congregation, many of us by now would view the Holocaust victims as nameless, faceless people who all suffered a collective atrocity. It is only because we knew Bob that we understand that every one of those 6 million people had a unique life and a history that was torn apart by what happened. Because there were so many years between us and our ancestors who were slaves in Egypt, we do the same thing to them. According to the Torah, there were more than 630,000 Jews in Pharaoh's bondage, but we don't see 630,000 stories. We see one. We view them all as a single entity, and we diminish the Passover observance when we do. Every one of those people had a unique life, unique experiences, unique joys and sorrows, just like us. They left their homes with less than a day's notice and fled with Moses and Aaron so they would be free to serve our God, not the gods of the Egyptians. Life as a slave in Egypt probably wasn't a very good one, but it may have seemed better to many of those people than heading across the desert on foot to the Red Sea and the unknown. They had to be worrying about what they would eat, what they would do when they, or if they actually reached the Red Sea. Think about what the journey was like for people who were very old or very sick. Imagine embarking on such a trip if you were about to give birth or had several very small children. It was an almost inconceivable leap of faith to trust in God and Moses to deliver them from Egypt to the promised land of milk and honey. Put yourself in their place. Could you have done it? Could you walk away from everything you had known all your life and out of faith in a God you couldn't see? While it is wonderful to base our Passover celebrations on traditions and sameness, I think we owe it to our ancestors to take the time to think about what they did for us from their perspective instead of just our own. If we can do that, it will give a whole new dimension to Passover for us. And again, this was written by Jeanette, and as always, quite mind-provoking and very, very good. Thank you.